Congresswoman-elect. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you very much, Liz. Great to be here.
It's very good of you to sit down. We are, just so we can explain to the viewers, we're at the Greece Public Library. This is a community room, which is why you have these unusual handprints on the walls. Actually, we're in a county, Monroe County, that you fought very, very hard in. And you knew it was part of the strategy, really, that you had to keep Assemblywoman Corwin's numbers down here. It's a GOP-dominated county, as much of the counties are. You must be very pleased with the turnout.
I am. You know, we spent a lot of time in Greece, and we have headquarters here right from the beginning. An amazing ground game. We had a lot of volunteers, all ages, people knocking on doors, calling people, reaching out. And a lot of time I spent just stopping in the diners. We just stopped at the Long Pond Diner again today, and I had been there last week with Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy. Yeah. And so that, he was a big hit, and I think people just saw that once they saw me in person, they really were able to put aside the D label, the Democratic label, and many people, and I was at the Friendlies on election morning out here, they said that they would support me because they believed in my message. And I was really honored. A few of them said I'd be the first Democrat they've ever voted for. So it means a lot. So we spent a lot of time out here in Monroe County, and even outside the boundaries. I made sure I was in the city of Rochester, speaking to the mayor already, speaking to the president of the University of Rochester, and really trying to absorb the issues that are important to the people here.
You know, I want to talk to you a little bit about this idea that there was a referendum on Medicare. But before we get there, there has been a lot of speculation about that the Republicans lost this, and perhaps not enough credit, really, to the fact that you were actually a very hardworking candidate. I mean, you worked very hard, but also the ground game. I mean, I think the Democrats focused very early on the ground game, recognizing that because you had limited resources and you were outspent, right?
Yes, we were outspent. I've heard everything from 2 to 1 to 3 to 1 and up. And we knew we had a lot of disadvantages coming to this race. I could not personally finance this, as 2 of the opponents were able to do. Not a millionaire. And the other thing is the money that was coming in from the outside sources was incredible. So we had to deal with a lot of money. Couldn't compete with that. So I knew I had to shift dynamics. People would not see us on television and radio as much, but they could see us in person. So I made sure I was out here literally where every time I drove past a business or a little restaurant, 3 or more cars, I jumped on and went in and introduced myself. So I wish I had more time to do it, but I think we had the result we were looking for in this area.
So is that what you think actually, what was the secret to the success was in part a focus on the ground game, your willingness to work, and also you were very disciplined in your message. When did you realize first that the issue of Medicare was going to be?
Well, right when the Ryan budget passed, I mean, before it even came out, we said we would have opposed that approach to Medicare. And we thought it was important that the voters in this district would have an opportunity to know how Jane Corwin and Jack Davis would have voted on this. So it took a few days, took a lot of effort for the media to finally get an answer out of them, and I think you had some success in that. And I think that's what really helped change the dynamic as well. We've always been close. So I want to say our polls showed us always very close, but we never broke out of the pack. And I think when we focused on the national issues, that really helped us to show the extreme differences in the priorities of the candidates that were out there. So I think that Ryan budget, when that passed around April 15th or so, that gave us the impetus to move forward. And again, it was all about the contrast.
And it's not going away either, because now we hear from Harry Reid that he's going to bring it up for a vote in the Senate. You know, it's interesting because you bring up Paul Ryan, and now this has become, if not only a referendum on Medicare, a referendum on Paul Ryan himself. And he has been on the hot seat this morning. He said, quote, when a Democrat runs as a third-party Tea Party candidate and spends a couple $1 million, it's going to have an effect. This is a Republican line. This is more about Jack Davis than Medicare. Do you believe that you could win without Davis in the race?
I do, because when you start looking at what was happening in this election, again, our polls were always tight from the very beginning. Jack Davis started going down. I think the Corwin people thought that those votes were going to come back to them. They came over my way. That was not expected. And also, we had to deal with people voting for Jack Davis. He'd run 3 times as a Democratic candidate, and he had a very strong message that appealed to labor on trade issues. So, say what you will, but Jack Davis was also a factor in our race as well. So that was a concern. When people knew it was Jack Davis, they'd say, well, Democrats have pulled a lever for him 3 times, and he came very close last time he ran. So, it's all very fluid, and a lot of chaos was involved. So I don't know if you can just point to one factor and say, with or without Jack Davis, the outcome would have been different. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, it was obviously a focus for the Republicans at this point. There are some people, including the House Speaker, and of course these are going to be colleagues of yours in just a matter of days, and Paul Ryan. You had Newt Gingrich saying that the Medicare overhaul plan, as proposed by Ryan, was actually too controversial and it was too far out there and he couldn't embrace it. Now you have Boehner and Paul Ryan himself continuing to embrace it, and he actually is accusing this morning again, Paul Ryan, the Democrats at your campaign and your allies of demagoguery and scare tactics. Do you have a response to that?
Yes, they're wrong. They're the ones that are trying to scare seniors by proposing a plan that would decimate Medicare and end it as we know it. And that's not me speaking. That's the Wall Street Journal. That's the Chicago Tribune. That's the Buffalo News. That's the Democrat and Chronicle. Everyone who's looked at this, and even the Congressional Budget Office, it would end Medicare as we know it. So to call that demagoguery, I think they're trying to employ some scare tactics, and people didn't buy it. People didn't buy it. It was a clear choice of who was going to look out for seniors and continue Medicare as it is as a guaranteed health care program for our seniors, a promise that we've made to them for 45 years. We've had this program in place. We've all paid into this program. Our seniors have paid into this program, so that money should be waiting for them when they need it. And I wasn't going to throw our seniors under the bus, as I believe the Paul Ryan budget does, in favor of continuing tax breaks for the wealthiest, millionaires and billionaires, and big breaks for big oil. And that's the message. I was very blunt in my assessment. I know we need to get spending under control. I'm not coming in and just Pollyanna saying everything's okay. I don't believe that. We have to make some tough decisions to get our spending under control. But there's also a revenue side that the Ryan budget wouldn't touch. It's off the table for them. And the people in this district had a very different point of view on that.
You had just said, we came, as you mentioned, from the restaurant where you were thanking voters. A lot of those people obviously were elderly, seniors. I don't know exactly how old they were. I heard a number of them say to you, don't forget us, stand up for us, protect us. You promised that you would.
Absolutely.
Yet you've also made it clear that everything is on the table. Those are the words that the Republicans kept throwing back at you. I mean, is it not in some way a little bit frightening to them, period, to seniors, period? Medicare, as we know it, has to change, doesn't it?
When I've said everything on the table from day one, I have been very clear. I'm talking about entitlement reform. I never said we were going to touch the benefits that our seniors receive, and that's the difference. Republicans try to twist that around. In fact, they ran ads saying I was the one trying to hurt Medicare. People didn't buy it. They just didn't buy it. Now, what I have said from day one is that you need to get the underlying costs that are driving up Medicare under control, and that would be our health care costs. And I've laid out some very concrete plans on the table when I've had many debates, or the 2 debates we had, I should say. I would have liked more. We had 2 debates, and I was very clear on how I thought we needed to get costs under control. But to basically undermine the fundamental premise of Medicare, which is that when you hit a certain age, you're going to have a guaranteed health insurance to cover your doctor visits and your surgery and your prescriptions. The Paul Ryan budget was going to alter that, just turn it upside down. And they also tried something that didn't work. I would call it age warfare, because they tried to have a dividing line and say, well, most people above 55 are probably the voters. We won't worry about them. We'll tell them they're okay, which was not the truth anyhow. Their prescription drug costs were going to go up under the Ryan plan. But secondly, trying to tell seniors, don't worry because we're only throwing your kids under the bus, they didn't like that either. And I have 75-year-old parents who also want to make sure that there's Medicare for me as well when I hit the magic age. So
you don't think this was a referendum then?
Well, all I know is, I'm zeroed in on this district.
Right.
I know that I took a message out there that was very much that I did not support the Ryan budget. The priorities in it are not what I felt were strong, and people had a chance to say they supported a candidate who embraced them and someone who disagreed with them. So all I can look at is what happened in the 26th district locally. What happens nationally, I'll let others speculate on.
You've actually spoken a lot about your independence. I mean, when you and I have spoken, you said, I'm not a Washington candidate necessarily. I'm not anything but representing the 26th. And there had to be a lot of crossover. You were reelected to the clerk position with 80% of the vote. Obviously, there was a lot of crossover there. This is a GOP-dominated district. So how are you going to maintain that pragmatic approach? Will you, for example, join the Blue Dog Democrats?
I don't need to join anything. The only people I'm going to listen to are the people in this district. And at this point in my life, that's been how I've conducted myself throughout. And I've said right from the beginning, if the Republicans have a better idea on how to do something over the Democrats, I'll support a Republican plan. But I'm going to help work with the Democrats to take some lessons from this on what the priorities of the people of the district are. They don't have a problem with someone fighting to get our budget under control. I mean, they like the idea of fiscal responsibility, but they don't like the priorities of hurting our seniors while you're still willing to have tax breaks for big oil and allowed tax breaks to continue for millionaires and billionaires. So this should be the message in Washington, that revenues at the higher levels should be on the table. If we really are serious about getting our debt under control, you've got to look at the revenue side as well. And that should be the takeaway for Democrats and Republicans. Republicans should know that they could survive, as I did, clearly, by talking about revenues.
So if they only voted for tax increases, then Republicans could survive.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about tax increases. This is where I, again, differentiate myself with the Democrats. I think the threshold that's been proposed of removing tax breaks for people making $250,000 above, that's too low because it hits small businesses. And if I did anything on this campaign for the last couple months, I spent a lot of time talking to small business owners on the main streets, and that threshold is too low. But I support increasing the taxes on people making $500,000. If their income is $500,000 or above, I assure you they are millionaires or billionaires, and they should be willing to pay the same amount that they paid under the Bill Clinton era. When last I checked, we had a surplus, and we had a lot more prosperity in this country. So people just need to look back 10 years and realize we have come a long way.
So while you are independent and you have stressed your independence, you've also been celebrated. You received a call from Joe Biden, and congratulations to the Vice President. Chuck Schumer is just singing your praises to the skies. You have Senator Gillibrand was a very early supporter. Nancy Pelosi, you said on national TV that you thought she'd done a great job for this country. First of all, do you believe that was a mistake? Do you still, because they used it to attack you?
No, and again, I have a lot of respect for people who are in difficult positions. I have respect for people, and my hallmark is that whenever people are elected, I respect them because people support them. So I think they just blew it out of proportion to indicate that means I'm not independent. That was a stretch, and they know it. And that just absolutely backfired on them. But I've had Republican elected officials call and congratulate me. People that I've worked hand in hand with to get changes through the state legislature. When I stood up against the mandatory license plates, when I stood up on giving licenses to illegal immigrants, I worked closely with Republican county clerks, Republican state legislators. So those people are also making congratulatory calls as well, and they're looking forward to me being a voice for them as well.
But you support Nancy Pelosi. I mean, there's no vote, but you support her as minority leader.
Well, there's not a vote at all. I mean, there's no vote until January 2013. And I don't even know if there's going to be a district here. So that's a lot of conjecture at this point.
But you're not concerned about that? I mean, if in fact there is a point where you have to run in a primary against Brian Higgins, who was a big supporter of yours, or Louise Slaughter, or your district goes away, or something?
I'm not anticipating any primaries. Louise and Brian have been very good with me, and Brian has been my biggest backer since day one. So I didn't get into this to fight with other Democrats. I got into this to make sure that people who had been unrepresented in Washington since February 9th had a voice. And however long I can have that voice, I consider it an honor.
So now you actually have a situation where you have to move, and you are house hunting, I understand. Do you have any feeling about how much time you have? I think because once you become a congresswoman, you have to live in the district.
There's actually not a time frame other than my own, which is I want to do it as soon as I can.
Okay.
I have a house to sell. I'm certainly looking to move into the district as soon as possible. The beautiful thing is we're both empty nesters now, my husband and I, so we need a little smaller place. It was a great time to downsize anyhow. So a lot of realtors have been reaching out to us, and we're ready to make the move. And again, it was never an issue for people in this district, never ever. And but I'm looking forward to the opportunity to move into another part of the district, sure.
And do you know now, sometime after the Memorial Day weekend, you will be sworn in?
I expect I would be. We're still waiting for the Speaker and the Clerk of the House to let us know when that would be. At this point, it doesn't look like it's going to be tomorrow, and I think we're probably looking at next Tuesday through Thursday, somewhere in that time frame. So I'm really excited about it.
Will you get to move into Chris Lee's office? Do you know?
I'm going to be looking at office space out here for sure in Greece, and probably the existing office that's in Amherst. So I think that just make the transition a lot smoother. And my concern is that there's probably been a lot of constituent casework that's not been handled, or there may be a serious backlog. So I need to jump right into my constituent issues first. Get the meetings going, talk to veterans groups and senior groups and the Rotaries and the chambers. As I've always done as a county clerk. I mean, that's just how I operate. I get down to the real local level, talk to people what's on their mind. So I'm looking forward to doing that as a member of Congress.
Well, thankfully for you, this is a weekend, right? A holiday weekend. Perhaps you can actually take a rest. You didn't get that much sleep last night.
Not a lot of sleep. We have a daughter graduation party this weekend, which we postponed because of the election. So we had to celebrate my daughter's graduation from college. So we got a little family get together, and now we're ready to hit the ground running.
Well, congratulations again. I really appreciate your time, Congresswoman.
Thank you very much, Liz. Great to be here.